This is our Pennyworth Preview Podcast on TV Podcast Industries. Welcome to the Raven Society. This is Derek from Gotham TV Podcast, and we're back in DC's Batverse with our Pennyworth Preview Podcast, or our Pennyworth Podcast Preview. I can't work out which way to do that, John.
I think it's the Pennyworth Preview Podcast,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Hello there, fellow Raven Society members. Yes, I am one of your other hosts, John. Mm-hmm. Or are we in the Butlerverse at this stage, rather than the Batverse?
Not just yet, yes.
Yes, or the Securityverse, or the DC Securityverse. Yeah, we are here looking at our preview of Pennyworth. Mm-hmm. We have been lucky to get access to the first 5 episodes of Pennyworth, which will be on Epix over in the US. Mm-hmm. So yes, we are really looking forward to seeing how the co-creators, or the creator, I should say, in Bruno Heller, and his trusty number one, shall we say, Danny Cannon, translate the character of Alfred Pennyworth to his own show. So yeah, really excited for this.
Yes, but don't worry, we aren't going to spoil anything at all about the show. We're going to talk about some general thoughts of the episodes that we've seen and of the overall perspective on Pennyworth. The reason why we're doing this now is because this is coming out on the 28th of July, and San Diego Comic-Con is coming up this week, and there's going to be a big presence of Pennyworth over at San Diego Comic-Con. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in our news section before we go into our general thoughts.
Exactly, yes. Gotham may be over, but of course Bruno Heller and Danny Cannon are about to release the 10-episode series of Pennyworth, all about Alfred Pennyworth and how he meets Thomas Wayne. And it's set in 1960 London, but also 13 degrees off. It is a little timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, a bit like Gotham from Gotham, surprisingly. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. When you watched Gotham the first season, without a doubt, you had that feeling of those kind of 70s cop shows. And then occasionally you'd have a computer in there, or you'd have a mobile phone in there. This is very similar in Pennyworth. We have a similar style about it, that it's definitely the 60s. There's definitely that 60s kind of style in the way everybody dresses, but there's something a bit off about the setting.
Dare I say it, there is something maybe less steampunk, but more 60s steampunk. So you have, for example, police officers with masks over them.
Okay.
You've kind of got the yeoman guard from the Tower of London, sort of guarding the government buildings with machine guns. And then you kind of probably go straight back to Elizabethan times, where you have people caged up hanging from lampposts, like you would see in Pirates of the Caribbean, where they're in a suspended cage and are gradually, I don't know, starving to death or being pecked apart by ravens. So, yeah, there's a real sense of a different periods coming in here. There's that kind of, ye olde medievalness of London, but there is also, it's set in the 60s, and there is quite a sort of a progressive modern vibe, that they're standing on this moment where it takes off with personal computers and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, really interesting sort of vibe to it, for sure.
Yeah, it takes you by a little bit of a surprise when you're watching it the first time. If you have no idea what's happening, then suddenly you see somebody in stocks as people are walking down the street past them and throwing stuff at them, It suddenly kind of takes you away from what you thought you were going to see in this 60 set series. And I suppose that does bring us into this news about the activation, that they're calling it, on San Diego Comic-Con for Pennyworth. Visitors to San Diego Comic-Con this week are going to get the opportunity to experience a bit of the world of Pennyworth.
So they're going to get hung up in cages and left to rot?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Luckily, they're going to get a nicer experience of 60s London. The way they've described it is that for 3 days, they'll be taking over the Oxford Social Club, which is in Pendry, San Diego. They'll be able to go into the world of Pennyworth by visiting this club. Once they go through the coat check section, they eventually will just make it into a lounge where they'll be approached by members of the Raven Society to kind of encourage them to come and join their organisation.
Yeah, I suppose the Raven Society is kind of like the Court of Owls type of thing. In some respect, it's this organization that still we don't know too much about. We've met one of their principal characters, but everything else around it is fairly foggy and murky, and we're not entirely sure. But certainly, the Raven Society seems to be the main antagonist organization here that is going to embroil Thomas Wayne and Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah, and effectively they say about the experience that if you uncover a special password, you get access to the Scarlet Rope, this high society lounge with gambling and drag performances and sounds from 60s band, where you'll start your journey. And within the lounge, the guests can play blackjack, they can take pictures with the cabaret dancers and enjoy the live entertainment, or head into the library where there'll be butlers all around you, so they get this full experience of Pennyworth.
Yeah, and it's interesting in that, like in Gotham with the Sirens Club and Fish Mooney's Club beforehand, you do have in Pennyworth, there is a club in Soho, I think, at the centre of Alfred Pennyworth's nighttime activities as a bouncer.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. The other thing is, if you do get the opportunity to get into the Oxford Social Club in San Diego, then be warned, because members of this mysterious Raven Society will be roaming throughout the space trying to convert anyone who listens by enticing them with gifts and showing off the more luxurious aspects of membership of the Raven Society. So yes, be warned, you will be tempted by the dark side. Except it's not Darth Vader. It will be members of the Raven Society.
Exactly. I want to know much more about these guys as well. There is a dungeon as well in there where there's more unpleasant elements of the association. So this sounds like a really fun activation. I love these things that they do. I remember seeing one back at New York Comic Con for the Evil Dead. They had one on there. They've had loads of different activations like this in San Diego Comic Con before and at New York Comic Con. So we want to see photographs of this coming up. Hopefully it's going to be on from July 18th through to July 20th, 3 days in a row. So hopefully there'll be loads of photographs coming out from inside this experience. Also, of course, since it's San Diego Comic-Con, it's a big TV festival. Of course, the pilot will be shown at the event. It's going to be airing on Wednesday the 17th of July from 6 p.m. They have normally these presentations from Warner Brothers where they have 3 or 4 of their shows get their pilot episodes shown. So Batwoman is also going to be shown there on the day along with this. So it'll be big Batverse representation on the day from Warner Brothers.
Yeah, there's going to be Q&A panels as well as video presentations as well on Friday from 4:30 to 5:30. So expect a whole range of new series trailers and clips from the cast and the episodes coming out. It'll be really good. And of course, Warner Brothers normally are pretty positive about people sharing stuff on social media as well. Whenever we have been at New York Comic Con, they have actively promoted the sharing of people's thoughts and images from the event. Very different to Marvel. So certainly, it's a good opportunity to get the word about Pennyworth out there as well if you're heading along to San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah, I want to see loads. I want to see as much as we possibly can. I'll be following the Pennyworth hashtag over on our Twitter account just to catch up on anybody that's sharing this stuff about the show, because I'm really excited to see what other people are thinking of these episodes as they start coming out. Another massive piece of news. We have a lot of international listeners to our podcast, not just people living in the US who are able to see it on Epix, this reasonably new channel that's picked up the rights to this show from Danny Cannon and Bruno Heller. The international rights for Pennyworth have been announced. They've gone to Stars Play, an offshoot of the channel Stars. They are a digital channel that you can add to Amazon Prime, you can add to Virgin Media in the UK, but all of these rights have gone to the UK, Germany, Italy, Spain, Ireland, Belgium, Luxembourg, Austria, and Latin America. So a massive undertaking from Stars Play that they'll be showing it around all of those countries coming up later this year.
It's great stuff, and I really do hope, and I suspect they will, handle it better than Channel 5 did with Gotham when we started off. I think with it being digital, I think when it is released on there, after its initial run on Epix, then I think we'll see a good handle on the release of these episodes. Hopefully it's not too delayed like with Channel 5.
Yeah, I'm crossing fingers. I did reach out to the UK version of Stars Play, asking whether this will be just broadcast later in the year or whether it will be close to the 28th of July. They've just said, watch this space. We'll tell you pretty soon. So you never know. It could be out on the 29th, which is the day after, obviously, at the first airing of the first episode. These episodes come out once a week for 10 weeks, I believe. There's not been a huge amount of announcement about the timing of the episodes, but we believe we'll get that this week. It starts on the 28th of July. So hopefully we'll get something maybe on the 1st of August, maybe somewhere around that we'll start getting these episodes out from Stars Play. That'd be quite cool if they were able to follow this around the world, because why buy the rights to it this early if you're not going to broadcast it close to the US, you know?
Absolutely. Let's hope that they release it pretty close to the US airing date as well.
That'd be really cool to be able to follow it around the world at the same time. That's kind of the whole point of having a digital channel, really, and paying for it to get it at the same time as the US, right? Let's talk a little bit about the show itself. Again, we're not going to spoil anything, but just general impressions about the show Pennyworth, because we've seen a few episodes of it now. The show is created by Bruno Heller and Danny Cannon, and as John mentioned, you can definitely see a little bit of the feeling of Gotham as the show builds into a couple of episodes. First episode is just a place setting kind of episode, and as we all remember from Gotham, the first season is very different from any of the later seasons. It probably has the purest vision, the first half of the season, definitely, because it was all made before anybody had seen any episodes. The first 10 episodes had been made before it got announced for the second half of the first season. So there was definitely a style of it that was supposed to be a gangster show versus the police officers of the GCPD. And you can definitely get that feeling about this show that it's a 60s set kind of spy drama.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real sense of international espionage here, and sort of just with Thomas Wayne being there, you don't know why he's there, who he is there for, but he's into something that the Raven Society doesn't want. This seems to be kind of an upper echelon British sort of society. To what ends, we don't know. But yeah, it's all very kind of, as I say, it feels very much like the Court of Owls being this upper society controlling aspects of everyday life. And we have here then sort of this American involvement in the UK affairs through Thomas Wayne. So it does lend itself to that international espionage of the 1960s for sure.
Yeah.
I think certainly you can really sense the world of Gotham. As we said, it's set in the 60s, but there's a lot of stuff being lent from different parts. As I say, I think People in Cages, probably back to Elizabethan times, that kind of thing. You have that real kind of 1930s to 1960s kind of idea of sci-fi with blimps. You've got then it looking back with tall chimneys. The vistas of London are really good. I think they've got the same SFX people that were on Gotham, and they created some great panning shots. And here, you see the dirty chimneys, almost that you would associate with Victorian Britain. So there's a real kind of steampunk Victorian, steampunk 1960s, that kind of weird vibe. So it's really interconnecting different sort of time periods for sure, but it makes for a really interesting and diverse kind of landscape within the episodes that we've seen so far, for sure.
Yeah, we covered Gotham for almost 6 years, so as we learned from our time on that, Bruno Heller kind of stepped back from Gotham as it was being changed by the network, and they brought on board John Stevens to be the other showrunner for the show. Bruno Heller only came on to write a few episodes. He wasn't doing the overarching treatment for each of the series. So this probably feels a little bit closer to the vision that they wanted to talk about. They had made the decision when they went into Gotham to make a show not connected to the rest of the DC universe. They knew they couldn't get the rights to loads of the characters that have gone to Warner Brothers and have gone to all the other streaming services. They knew Gotham was going to be a standalone show. So once again, by doing this setback in the 60s, they now have no possibility of taking any characters from the DC universe because they're so far back in time and so far into a different universe that they can't actually do crossovers with the shows. So I think that was always the purpose for Bruno Heller and Danny Cannon, that they wanted to make something that felt part of the DC style, but not in the DC universe.
Yeah, or just to add another layer to the DC universe. I think we've talked quite a lot about, TV shows or movies taking from comic books and what TV shows and movies can give back to comic books. It's not just a one-way traffic here. And I think, this is a really important moment for DC in exploring one of their biggest properties, sidekicks, effectively, in Alfred Pennyworth, the loyal butler or valet to Bruce Wayne and his family. And we've had a few moments in the comics where they have gone back before Bruce Wayne to that relationship between Alfred and Thomas Wayne, or to Alfred's back history. And I think there's a real great opportunity here to flesh that out even more and to add to the canon of Alfred Pennyworth in the DC universe, both in live action and in the comic book. So really good. And just whilst we're speaking of Alfred Pennyworth, I think we speaking of the cast, we have Jack Bannon, who is playing Alfred Pennyworth. He's been in The Imitation Game and Ripper Street. And then there is Ben Aldridge as Thomas Wayne, who has been in Fleabag, which is certainly very of the moment at this time. Really got a good buzz around it, and Our Girl.
And they're the two kind of central people. That's the central relationship that we know of. It's taken the same jumping off point that we got from Gotham, where this idea of Alfred being a former SAS man and meeting Thomas Wayne under circumstances that we won't go into because that may spoil some of the episode for the show. But it's taken that same jumping off point that we got in Gotham. Now, obviously, Sean Pertwee's Alfred Pennyworth is much older, so he's gone through all of these experiences, but the exact same jumping off point, that idea that this guy has returned from war and is trying to make a life for himself, that's a similar jumping off point that we got from Jim Gordon in the early series of Gotham as well. So there's some parallels in here, but it's not a direct prequel to Gotham. You won't be seeing things like Sean Pertwee playing Alfred telling you, this is how I got my suit and tie, or this is how I became a butler, or anything like that. This is definitely Jack Bannon as Alfred Pennyworth, a very young man at the start of this show. And I'm kind of intrigued to see his relationship with Ben Aldridge play out as Thomas Wayne. This kind of American and Cockney Londoner is an interesting vibe already.
Yeah, and it is very, very Cockney, I have to say now. I think we may need to do kind of an interpretation zone on our podcast.
Maybe.
And weirdly, Paloma Faith, who is actually from London, is giving a Northern English accent, and a really good one as well. Yeah. So, and she is, really, really good here as Bet Sykes. I must say I've enjoyed her on screen in the episodes we've seen so far. Just been really good, and certainly I think along with her you get some quite adult themes coming through in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. Paloma Faith is a standout already in the show. She's just a scene stealer in everything she's been in, so really excited to see more of her. Also have Jason Fleming, who you may remember from some of the X-Men movies, and he was in many of Guy Ritchie's movies, his early movies as well, so great presence there from Jason Fleming. The last major cast member for the show is Emma Corrin, who's playing Esme, the girlfriend of Alfred Pennyworth. She's been cast as Princess Diana in The Crown as well, which is a hugely popular Netflix show, so big things expected from Emma Corrin in this show and in The Crown. It's interesting that she's doing two of those at exactly the same time as well.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Big stuff. General overall impressions of the show. It's a slow starter. There's a long first episode. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, so it's probably on broadcast TV, it would be about an hour and a half. So it's a proper pilot. It's a big episode. And it is a very scene setting, not a huge amount of action, but as the series progresses, it does get better and better, which is what you'd expect. You always say, give a series 3 episodes to see if it's right for you. This is an interesting one. There's a lot of intrigue set up at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly I think the violence and the language and some of the themes are much more adult so far in Pennyworth than Gotham. And certainly is probably closer to the first 13 episodes of Gotham in terms of, some of the violence and themes. But here, absolutely, there is no holds barred, really, for some of the themes that are being done, or just some of the scenes. This is not Gotham, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another show that could be similar to this. Maybe Titans on the DC streaming platform was quite similar to this in terms of violence. and the level of language that's being used, and that this is not one for the kids. This wouldn't be a whole family sitting down watching this like you could with Gotham. Even though they did go to some extremes of violence, it never got too much out of hand. It feels like we're on a streaming platform now. We can say and do whatever we want to. That's what it feels like in some of the episodes we've seen. So be careful if you're of a sensitive disposition. It may not be the show for you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's our overall impression and thoughts. And of course, really looking forward to it. I mean, I think what we've seen so far has been really good. And so we can't wait to get into the podcast discussions and reviews of all things Pennyworth. I think it's a nice little move on from Gotham, and it's great to explore this character's back history, really. Certainly given the performance done by Sean Pertwee as Alfred Pennyworth in Gotham. One of our favourites. So we're really looking forward to this. We hope you are too. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, TV Podcast Industries. Head on over to our website, tvpodcastindustries.com, and you can sign up to any good or evil podcast catcher of your choice. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. So just search TV Podcast Industries for all things on the Pennyworth podcast.
Yes, or just search for the Pennyworth podcast. We should be showing up. Yeah, if you've listened to this preview episode and want to let us know what you think and want and hope and wish for when you're watching episodes of Pennyworth, let us know. You can email us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can go to the website, as John mentioned, and just leave a voicemail for us there of your thoughts about the series. We will have an episode, our review of the first episode of Pennyworth out on the 28th of July or the 29th of July, just depending on time zones, I guess. So hopefully you'll join us for the series on Epix or on Stars Play when it's released on there.
So thank you so much for joining us. We will see you for episode 1, which is just named Pilot. And there's no pilots in it at all. It is the pilot episode. Where we will get introduced to Alfred Pennyworth and Thomas Wayne in 1960s London on 13 Degrees Off.
That's it, exactly. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye.